Hey, I feel like
Hello.
I can still hear music, but maybe it's just me.
You're hallucinating.
I'm hallucinating already. Yeah, it didn't take long. Maybe it's because I turned the air conditioning off.
That's probably it.
It's already hitting me. Hi, everyone. Nope, I
Yes,
can hear it.
Akiko was here first one into the last behind the
Hang on, I
couch.
do have some background noise, and I don't know what is happening. Okay.
Oh, it's my air conditioning. I'm gonna go turn it off.
No, I was hearing our stream. Sorry, guys. You would think this is the first time we're doing this, not the last time. Scott, give me a second. Let me see what's going on.
Take your time. Yes, folks. Oh, I know. We were just this morning writing. We're finishing up the writing of our last full episode, which will be recorded tomorrow. So, oh, hey, Alex and Laura
It was
and
really weird.
Laura Gordon, Laura G and Laura J.
It's like I was hearing the stream kind of like somewhere else, and I was like, do I have another device going?
Is the
So
stream in the room with you, Shiloh?
I think it actually is. I don't know what's happening. As long as you guys can hear it fine, I guess I'll just like turn down the voices in my head with all the tricks and techniques I've learned as being a clinical psychologist, not working with psychotic people as often as Scott, but
Whew,
see if I
that's
can
the
get through
truth.
this. I know. Yeah. Speaking of Alex being here, he had a lot of questions about working with people in prison, Scott, that he's going to have to ask you one day.
Oh, I gotta head over. When's he coming
I
back?
know. Come on over. Well, he's flying out tomorrow. He'll be back around Thanksgiving. So,
Oh, we'll talk to him before then.
yeah. Oh my gosh. So it's our last behind the couch. This
Yeah.
is crazy. This is a crazy thing we decided to start during COVID 5 years ago on Get Vocal.
On top of a podcast. Hey,
top
let's
of
do
the
something
podcast.
else.
I know.
Why not?
Exactly. Yeah. So 5 years later, here we are wrapping up. I think this is going to be a very fitting show for that. We have always, over the years, loved introducing you guys to new-ish quality podcasts. And if you're a listener of ours, we know that you're really going to like their show. We're going to have a great conversation about the importance of getting stories right, especially when you're covering stories from a long time ago, which, Scott and I got to dabble in a bit with our vintage episodes. So yes, we are looking forward to the show tonight. And let's see, what else do we want to say just in kind of housekeeping and stuff right now?
So just reminders to everybody that yes, we're sort of closing a chapter on this book, but Patreon's gonna be up. Discord's Discord is going to be up and the episodes are still here. Every once in a while, we're going to jump on and do a shrink wrap for the Patreon, which is it's just a lot less labor intensive because it's basically shooting from the hip, a lot more relaxed and not quite as much research. It's more of our commentary on things that are happening.
And
So
just when
yeah,
the inspiration hits us, so we
yeah,
don't have any having any high hopes about doing it on a regular basis.
yeah,
You
not
guys
right
will just
now.
have to keep your settings on, be surprised when something comes up. Remember, if you are a Patreon member or if you choose to still join in September, anytime working up to October, we will be dropping everyone down to just $1 a month after October 1st. So I guess I have
Right.
to figure out how to do that. I'll put it on my list. So you are at the bare minimum, just able to be a member and access that information. So we can keep some of, things like our website with all of our resources and things like that up and going. So thank you guys. Thank you, Akiko. I'm going to, what I'm going to miss? I'm going to miss seeing Scott's face on a regular. So again, we just have to be more intentional of doing it in person.
We actually have to see each other in person now.
I know. It'll be like the old days of driving to each other.
I know.
All right. Well, do you want to announce our new Patreon members? We have a couple and some in each category.
I do. This is very exciting. Like that here, sort of the end. that we continually, like each week, we get like one or two, which is so crazy. At the associates level, we have Katie G and Christy M. At the intern level, we have Scott D. And at the doctorate level, we have Heather S. Thank
Yes, thank you guys.
you. Know who that is?
No, it's not.
It's
Different
not.
last name.
Okay. I thought
Yeah,
it was Heather S. We got another
different.
Heather S. That's awesome.
I know, I know. All right. Well, without further ado, we want to allow plenty of time for our conversation. So I am going to bring on Leah. Leah is the executive producer and co host of the podcast Dark City. The show launched last year and it aims to take you along for the ride as she and her co host April recount well researched lore of criminal and bizarre cases one city at a time. And as their tagline goes, every place has a shadow and every shadow has a story. I love that. It's brilliant. Welcome, Leah. How are you?
Hello. Oh gosh, this is so different because I'm so used to doing audio. And so, guys, I hope this goes well. This is my first like full video podcast. We've released some video on social media, and right now, video is killing the audio podcast star. So,
It
time to
sure
jump on
is.
board.
Yes. Well, don't be nervous.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll say Scott and I still get nervous when we do this,
Oh yeah.
especially with other people's shows, because you don't know their audience. Of course, we know our audience. But this, like I said, is just feels like it's going to be the perfect fit. And I'm glad you and I went to lunch months ago and talked about doing this.
I know. I know. And Dr. Scott, I feel like I know you because I've listened to you for hours on the podcast because I regularly listen to you. And
So
you're like,
sweet.
I don't know you. But
You know what? Like I'm so thank you. I mean, like we're both so lucky that we've had like 99.999% of experiences have all been super, super wonderful with listeners. And I'm seeing the best part of parasocial relationships from working on this podcast. It's been wonderful. So thank you.
awesome.
Well, and
I also wanted go ahead.
I was just going to say a little like fun fact. Leah and I, our skin is glowing right now because we have the same dermatologist PA. So
Oh
that's
yeah,
actually
that's
how we
how we
got
know about
connected.
each other.
And Scott,
Oh
your
my
your
goodness.
skin is glowing too. Always. We have to do a little esthetician's corner like we always
We
do.
should. Our next shrink wrap should be the esthetician's corner discussion for true crime aficionados. So I wanted to say this about Leah. This is one of the reasons that we were really excited to have you on, and Shiloh was like crowing about this from the beginning. Is like some of our other colleagues that are the ones that we have become closest to over the years are people who really dive deeply into research and are not just kind of skimming the surface for the most basic level of things, but going really deep. And we really, really appreciate that in the level of quality of your production. So before we get you to tell us about the podcast, tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to start this show.
Well, okay. So, first of all, thank you again for having me on. And so to tell you about myself, I kind of think of myself right now in the context of all the people you've brought to your bu- um, Behind the Couch series. And you have so many amazing people who have worked across the criminal justice system for, some decades. And among this constellation of stars, I'm like, which one doesn't look like the others? Which one doesn't belong? Like the
Oh,
Sesame Street game. That's kind of how I feel right now. So to tell you about myself, so my background is actually not in podcasting and it's not in true crime, but I'm part of a generation now of creators that can pop up in this disintermediated world. We could just start publishing, anything, any podcast, any social media, for better, for worse. It's exciting and it's also kind of terrifying. So my background specifically has been in management consulting. I've probably split my career between that and public policy. My co-host April, she is a physical therapist by training, so very different from what we're doing today. To get to what made us start the podcast, well, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole because I know we have a lot we're going to cover today, but I listen to true crime a lot. And there is a true crime case that I listened to some years ago that just got under my skin. And I thought I need to go Sarah Koenig, the serial host, on this. And I'm going to do a limited series. Everybody should know about this and be talking about the implications. But I realized I don't have any background in podcasting, and I don't know, like, I don't have an audience. So
Right.
Dark City is sort of like my attempt of how do I just start somewhere and do a weekly, or like we publish every 2 weeks. And the concept itself, so Shiloh, you introduced it well, but it's basically looking at all the dark stuff in cities, all the things that we really don't know that's lurking in the shadows. And when I looked at the true crime space, because we cover more than just true crime, we also cover paranormal and scandals, all the dark stuff. I wanted something that was differentiated, because a good way to not make a living right now in podcasting is to start another true crime podcast, because there's so many. So I wanted something that was a little different. And you do have some place-based podcasts out there, but they don't really do a proper deep dive into a place. And so that is partly why Dark City is the way it is. It's intended to be different. And it's also inspired from my career too. Part of my time in public policy, I spent working with leaders of major organizations across sectors in Los Angeles, and in talking about where the region is going and what does the future look like, I wanted to know more about its past. So I started reading about its past, and oh my gosh, it is just, there's so much. I could probably do an entire series or entire podcast just on that. But I thought there's so much in local history that we just don't know, like places we take for granted, or that building might look haunted, and actually it is. And if you look into the history, there's things that actually happen there. So that's really what, Dark City is, how it evolved into what it is right now.
So can you tell us a little bit more specifically of the format and what kind of stories you like to focus on?
Yeah, so the format is it's really similar to yours, where we do like coffee chat style storytelling. That was an intentional decision, because as we get our bearings telling stories and being really really intentional about that. And just, I'm the sound engineer. I'm not a great sound engineer, but we wanted something that wasn't too rigid, that, if you hear me bang on the table, you're not going to be like, oh my gosh, it's not NPR quality. And it's fun. April and I are childhood friends. So we banter a lot like you guys do. So that's the format now, but it's really evolving as we become more experienced. You're going to start hearing local historians and authors, journalists. We've put some on, like James Bartlett, for example, who's done a lot of great research on Los Angeles. But I really want to make them more the stars of the show. And I'll still do my OCD research on all the sources. Thank you for realizing I do that. But I really think there are just all these amazing people out there, and you've never even heard of them. And so you'll start to see that evolution of it.
That's amazing. And so essentially, because do you have 2 seasons right now? Each season is sort of dedicated to one particular city, and you do multiple stories for that city.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So that won't change. Last season was Los Angeles, and this season is on Phoenix. And then there are some stories we come across. I think we're going to talk about it later too. We stayed at the Lizzie Borden house in Fall River. So we're going to do a detour on this.
Yep.
Yeah. So that will definitely stay. And I think
so
there will
fun.
also be more intentionality. Like the LA stories, the ones I picked were just, they were lesser known. And I was like, everybody should know about this. Or they just really sort of struck me as really interesting. But I'm hoping as this evolves and we get better at it, it'll be more intentional about painting an overall picture of a place and how it's evolved. But for now, that's how we do it.
Yeah, that's great. So you mentioned, I have, kind of this question that we like to ask people, and I think listeners find it very interesting about, what is kind of the true crime story that stands out as one that potentially got you hooked? And you alluded to one that you wanted to do some deep dive research on, which our listeners are already asking, hey, wait, what was that case? So if that is one and the same, or if there's something from your childhood that had you interested in true crime, we'd love to kind of hear about that.
Well, so that case, I'm sorry, guys, I'm not going to talk about it here. So I'll keep you on your toes on that one, because I want to make sure I properly represent it. It's also not a very old case. We cover I think we're going to talk about this later. I try to cover just, really historical, very well researched already cases because, victims are around, their families around. But I think I've always sort of liked the dark stuff. Like April and I growing up, we've always loved, true crime, ghost stories, those sorts of things. But like when I think of like one that really caught me, um, there isn't like just one. There's so many examples. I know Shiloh, I think you've described like the John Benet Ramsey case
Sure.
as your Roman Empire. I
Yeah.
think I have like too many of those right now. I'm still waiting for you to publish the definitive guide on it.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll see when I have more time after October.
I think the one example I would give when I was thinking of Dark City and this idea was formulating in my head, Jack Parsons is probably the one that stands out. So Jack Parsons he was one of the principal founders of NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab. And his death is debated still because he was so careful as a rocket scientist. He died, earlier than he should have. And he was doing experiments in his house. Because he had a fall from grace, which is like a whole story in of itself. But he like dropped something, it exploded, and he died. And a lot of people questioned, well, was that really an accident because he was so careful, or did he know too much? Because also when he started, he was one of the first people that really like started to think that in the 20s and 30s, when it was considered crazy, the idea of going outside of Earth and into space was like, no way, nobody will ever build a rocket that can do that. And then, they do that now. And he's one of the reasons why. But I think he's just really interesting because he wanted to go to space, but he ended up getting recruited. They ended up getting funding to work on stuff related to World War II. Like they called them jet assisted takeoff planes, where they use those rockets. They were strategically important for defense. And I think he got to the point where he was like, this wasn't even what we signed up for. We wanted to, get out of Earth's atmosphere. We never wanted to do anything like this. The point of all that being is that he was privy to a lot of really top secret information. And the kicker is that's really troubling because that was what he was doing by day, but by night, he was an occultist. So he also believed that he could, do these spells that would do things like summon an elemental mate, whatever that means. And he would go into the desert, literally, with L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of Scientology. That's part of the story too. And that was how he would spend his time. He was like in his house. He was like at the top of his occult following. Like it was a house of swingers that of course like didn't last for very long because that just doesn't seem to work. And everybody moved out. But I'm just reading about this and I'm like, this is crazy. Nobody knew that this was one of the principal founders of NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab. Like everybody needs to know this.
It's so kooky. And
it really is.
You read about these places like where the house was, where they would meet on Orange Grove Boulevard in Pasadena. And this is like where I grew up. And I'm just thinking, this place that was like Millionaires Row and this crazy stuff was going on, under behind one of those doors, and would have had all of those people clutching their pearls if they knew. But yeah, those stories are fascinating to just kind of reel you in historically, and then what's lost to just not great documentation sometimes.
Yeah. And what's also fascinating, and probably what pulled me and probably inspired Dark City too, is that so you mentioned Millionaires Row. It's not Millionaires Row anymore. A lot of those mansions got tore down after the Great Depression. There's some that still stand. But the specific house where Jack was like doing all his spells and everything, and people say it's probably still haunted, there's condos there. So when I first was looking at moving in this area, we literally were going to look at a condo that is located right where he lived.
Oh my gosh.
And was doing all this crazy, I know, all this crazy magic. So see, there's stuff like that in your neighborhood that like you didn't even know it was there. You could be living on it for all you know.
Absolutely. Those are some of the most beautiful apartments and condos like in Southern California. I like every time I drive down there, I'm like, I don't know, this would be a cool place to live.
Yeah.
But so it sounds like from the beginning, you were noticing like, hey, there are some shows out there that are not as appropriately sourced as they should be. And you really wanted this to like be a driver for you and be an important piece of Dark City. and historical storytelling. I mean, really, when I kind of frame this and talking about our conversation today, it was like historical true crime. But I mean, in a sense, all true crime is historical. And I think there's a certain responsibility there that has just obviously been watered down with the way we consume information today, which can be done well, but
Mhm.
it's completely different. And a lot of people take a lot of shortcuts.
Yeah.
So with that, I mean, we have both covered quite a few of similar cases. You've definitely through that lens, us, kind of looking back as psychologists of, what was happening with certain people and perpetrators and how women were being treated and in all of
Mhm.
that sense. But can you tell us a little bit about the research that you have found and maybe some of the myths? Just and I know these could be full series of episodes themselves. But we covered Griffith J. Griffith, right, as a person and
Right.
his crime. And
Yes.
you and April kind of covered Griffith Park as a place. Obviously, he
Mhm.
had a big role in that.
Right.
What did you find were some of the things that people keep getting wrong about the story of Griffith Park?
Well, okay. So again, I think I'm going to just emphasize I didn't find these things. Like with all of them, I'm very respectful to like it was historians and journalists who uncovered it. And I just
Sure.
packaged it into 40 minutes you could listen to on your commute or doing dishes. But what I did find, what they found is okay, so let me start with this story. So this is a fun one. In 1976, there was a couple on Halloween that stuck out to a picnic table to have their fun. But then a tree came crashing down on them and they died. And then when the park worker went to try to remove the tree, he started getting chills. His supervisor had to come and his hair turned white and he died on the spot. And this was in LA Times and it was also mentioned in the Washington Post. But the twist is before you're like the paranormal absolutely exists, it's all based on a fake website. And when you go and you look closely, I was so excited when I found this story because I was like, that sounds so legit. There's an LA Times, it's a fake site, but it's LA Turns if you look at it closely. And whoever mocked this up was like, they really went to town. Like there's an ad for Wicked. You'll just don't click on any of it. You'll start downloading like malware.
I'm sure.
But like it looked off to me, but honestly, I'm not the one who figured that out. I was because I do look at so many sources. There is a guidebook on Griffith Park by a person named Casey Schreiner, and he had like a section just on that myth, and it was like it's all based off of this fake website. Here's the address, and I was like, oh, that's why it looks so off to me. But I have
Yep.
seen a lot of creators that have told that story over and over again, like the LA Times even published it. And so, that one's a little bit more innocent, I think, because I think that website would probably trick a lot of people. But I think
Sure.
it's just like the importance of going back to like we're spreading these stories, even myself to a certain extent. And we can't go back always to the primary source underneath all of it. We're relying on so many things down the line. So that's a more harmless story. Um,
Every time I hike through Griffith Park and I see a picnic bench, I'm like, "Oh, is that the one?"
oh, I
So,
think
yeah, I've heard of it.
there's if I remember, it's been so long since I did this. I think there is a picnic table that's like cracked in half and like has like memorial to this couple that never even lived. And like,
Never
but
existed.
I don't think there's a trail to it. It's like you have to go off the map a little bit.
Of
So
course.
yeah, but I think that's a more fun one. I think like just I would say in general too, like looking at other creators, like the point isn't to shame anyone or call out, anyone in particular. I don't think a lot of people mean to not cite their sources when they're telling these stories.
Mhm.
Some I look at and I'm like, I know you know better, but you're not doing better. But I kind of think of it as like I'm what you call like a last mile storyteller. Like I didn't go into the archives like the historian did. I didn't pound the pavement like the journalist did. Like your local tour guides, some who are like really steeped in the local history, they know like so much. Like they've worked so hard to develop that knowledge. And it's hard to consistently cite everything and keep like the breadcrumb trail going. Like sometimes I think even on Instagram posts, I haven't always put the sources. And I moved everything now into my show notes. So like there's all like one point when I can't keep up my private website, there's
Right.
one point where you can see all of them. But I think it really is just like it's a matter of like basic respect, you know? And then people like I think you realize that when you start creating in this area, the algorithms really punish you for not pumping out content all the time. Like I can literally see it
Oh
dropping
yeah.
me.
Yeah. No. I'm so glad you're focusing on that because it really catches us creators in a particular corner is that,
Mhm.
we would all love to it would be great to make money off this and it would be great to, even achieve a higher level of success. But when it comes down to it, I mean, the three of us here are kind of like we're rooted in ethics and ethical storytelling and
Mhm.
ethical research. And, it's interesting. I like the way you framed it. You were very kind just now when you said, "Oh, come on, you know better." Because there are some people that do know better.
Oh yeah.
And then I do also believe that there are people that really don't. There are people, and I don't mean this in a pejorative sense, but
Yeah.
I think that there are people out there that are ignorant and they don't understand
Mhm.
that, like, just because you are behind the anonymity of a computer screen doesn't
Mhm.
mean that there aren't family members out there or people that were very strongly touched by these events that we're talking about. If
Yeah.
it's that, or if it's just kind of perpetuating a myth that is just continually gets out of hand and snowballs year after year. But
Right.
like, what was your take on that? I mean, how did you have sort of a come to spirit meeting with yourself about ethics and people that were still connected to these stories, or was that sort of always with you?
I mean, I think it's always been kind of with me. So I would never, even when I started, I would never think to not share a source or, cite it or even an episode. I feel like we could do it even more, especially when it's like
Mhm.
you've got like one researcher who's done a lot of the heavy lift recreating the events. Um, but I think it just gets more real for me, more time passes. Like, I don't know if I have permission to share names, so I'm going to keep it all anonymous, but there's a story I recently told that it turned out a close friend of mine was deeply connected with that case through a
Oh.
relative. And there might be audio somewhere on it. That's all I'll say. But the point being is like, even when you cover a case from 100 years ago, there are still people down the line that are still alive and like they can hear it and listen to it and react to it. And I will say, like, for us, we don't pull punches. If we think something's ridiculous, we will say it. And we do pepper things with dark humor, hopefully always where appropriate. Because I think it just makes these really heavy things digestible, but never as like it would pertain to like a victim or anything like that. I don't like to cover, there's two cases we've covered in this century. And the only reason why I covered them is because they were incredibly well documented. Like
Mm.
Netflix did a series, there were journalists that did, and there was a clear bad guy and a clear victim. The one that comes to mind is Lana Clarkson. So
Sure.
she was killed by music producer Phil Spector. And personally,
Horrible,
I know
horrible way
personally
to
for
go.
me, I am really passionate because he's in the tradition of Harvey Weinstein's where they are gatekeepers. They are gatekeepers to this industry. They have a long history of being horrible people. People are too afraid to talk because of their position. And it ended where he ended up killing her. And the evidence was decisive. He killed her in there's a castle in Alhambra, a home he used to own. He killed her there after she came home with him one night, probably just to network. I don't think there was anything there. But like that story to me, personally, I'm like, we need to keep telling these stories and retelling these stories and retelling these stories. It was really well documented. She was clearly like just seemed like beautiful inside and out woman. And I want to share those and get them out there. But again, like that was really well documented, which is why I felt comfortable doing it. But
Well, and you and I had a conversation offline when we were talking about your season in Phoenix that, it came up that like, what does everyone think when they think Phoenix? Well, they think of Alyssa Turney, right? And
mhm,
we were talking about like
yeah,
how involved and obviously like involved is such an understatement, but what an advocate that Sarah has been for her sister. And that's her story to tell, right? Like,
right.
and she's so gracious to say, like, I would love the story to be told by anyone who's going to get it out there. But yeah, ultimately something like that is screams Phoenix, right? When you're thinking about doing a season there,
Mhm.
it's an easy decision to say, there's plenty of other stories to tell.
Yeah, and that one's one I really do wanna tell, but I would consult her first, for
Mhm.
example, before.
Sure.
And I think, her, and I think Maura Murray is another case of a person
Yeah.
who went missing where her sister just got so frustrated and is like, "Everybody has talked about this case except for
Yeah.
me," who's
Yeah.
related to her, who actually has a stake, who's deeply researched and can speak for the family, and so she did a podcast on it. So I feel
Yeah.
like you also, anytime a creator like myself isn't directly connected or doesn't have, like, I wish I had a staff of researchers, I don't. But I feel like you just like you fundamentally get into really muddy territory. And I don't know if there's a way to really perfectly fix it. I think it's more important that we keep telling these stories because they do lead to cases getting solved. Like in their case, those are two unsolved cases. But as long as we're really intentional and thoughtful about the process is really critical.
I I really like what you just said. Because I agree with you. I don't think that there's any way to ever be out of the mud because this is we're in the sticky soft realm of human emotions
Hmm.
and trauma and horrific things, and those are never going to be clear cut categories. It just isn't. So
Right.
I like that you highlighted that. Let me use that as a sort of a segue to my next question for you. Are you in the position yet where you've received communications from listeners? Like, how do you handle like a correction email or a correction comment from
We've
listeners?
had our
And
share of those.
we've had our share of those, and the most majority of them have been wonderful. Like we've had
Yeah.
some really
Yes.
really good ones from people going, "Hey, you might want to look at this." Very thoughtful. But what's been your experience?
Mhm. Well, I mean, I will preface this by saying it's only because we're 40 episodes in and we're new. We haven't gotten any corrections yet. For episodes, I did get a correction. I'll share that in a second. But yeah, I mean, I imagine it's really I don't know, frustrating isn't the right word, but it's like every time before I publish, I just get nervous. Like, did I really like
Mm,
represent that all correctly?
yeah.
And I was even holding off on publishing this. And a friend of mine had said, you know what? If you get something wrong, a listener will tell you and you will have humility and you'll fix it. And I was like, that's right. That's exactly what I would do. So
Beautiful.
that's kind of how I'd handle that. The one case I did get, which is like a smaller, and this is like, oh, it's so far back in time, but I still think it's important to get the history right. Also, I think we should worry about the ghosts haunting us, but that's a separate thing. But when we went to the Lizzie Borden house, there's a story a lot of people don't know about the Bordens. Lizzie's great aunt through marriage. So she had three kids in rapid succession, and she was suffering from what was probably postpartum depression only in 1830 or whenever this was. You didn't know that's what it was. She ended up drowning two of her kids in a cistern. And I was told by someone who's like very researched and thoughtful about the Lizzie Borden case and history, the third child, that the mom tried to drown the third child, but that child climbed out and was spared. And I wrote this when there's a creator. Well, she was on Ghost Hunters, Amy Bruni. She's
Mhm.
really well respected. She has her own podcast too. Is not like just sharing paranormal stories just for the clicks or the views, but really deeply researched, goes into the history. I had commented on a post that she had made about that story that, oh, one fact about this is that the third child, which she didn't reference, was also, she tried to drown her too, and she escaped. And she wrote back, "Do you have a credible source on that?" And I
Mm,
and so we had like a little private conversation, and then I went digging and I was like, that is actually based off of lore. That person really didn't know. I asked the Historical Society, and they said, though they didn't give me a primary document, I'll just asterisk that. But they said actually the child wasn't even home that day, and that's why that child wasn't drowned. But, like we're telling these stories about people, even though they aren't here and they haven't been here for a while. It felt like, this is really important to get right.
We should. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there we had one experience that is still mystifying to me. And this was closer to the beginning of our show because our whole theme started off as like as having this overcast of noir about Los Angeles being such a big city, and one of the first 24-hour cities really
Mhm.
in the US, and like having like the jazzy, smoky back alley sort of tempo to things. And I got a 3-page email from someone that connected a social issue. So I'm going to be vague about this, but they connected a social issue that has absolutely, to my knowledge at that time, had no connection with noir as a movie genre or true crime. I mean, like none at all. But it was fervently and passionately written. So I was like, okay, maybe I'm wrong. Let me
Yeah.
go look
Mhm.
this up. So I went on every EBSCO database I could find. I went on every historical. I called a friend of mine who's a librarian at UCLA, and they were like, I don't see any connection here whatsoever. And so I don't know if that person was, messing with me, or they were just making something up. But I was like, okay, we're going to put this in the do not reply pile, because
Right.
sometimes that really is the best.
Yes.
As much as I would like to acknowledge receipt of everything, sometimes you just like, I'm sorry, I can't. I have a story to tell, and resources to look at. I'm not going to put energy towards this. It's
Well, and you
okay to
put a
do
lot of
that.
energy towards trying to verify it, right?
Well,
You
I wanted
already
to, yeah, I
you already
wanted to be
spent it.
responsible, but clearly they
Yeah.
had enough energy to argue, so I wasn't going to engage in that.
True. Very
Yeah,
true.
I know. I was warned about one of the episodes we published that we might get trolled for a
Yes.
competing theory. And
Yes.
Oh,
um
that's happened with us too.
yes,
Yeah.
I know. And we didn't get trolled, but I was like, I feel good about the evidence we put forward. And if that person comes forward, I think that's right, Scott. Sometimes it's just not worth having an argument. So I think if we haven't gotten to this point, but if we have people who say things that are just offensive or hurtful, I will ask
Mhm.
for the platforms to remove those, because I just don't want those to stand as like that's something that's appropriate to post. But if they are disagreeing, and even if they are like angry at me and yelling at me, if it doesn't cross the line, I'll just leave it, because
Yeah.
I feel like, you know, it's important to show you're open to other people questioning your work. I think that's a sign that the work is solid, is when people pick at it and probe it, and
Mm.
you're not afraid to defend it, and you're not afraid if you were wrong, because you do like what you did in that case. You went and you researched and you found it and realized, like, this is just going to pull me in a rabbit hole that is going to go nowhere.
Yeah.
Right.
And for the record, when we did our Behind the Couch with Tammy and Bryce and talked about Lizzie Borden, we also repeated that story that the third child survived.
Oh
So,
yeah, no, I know. I mean, it's
That's how
so
easily it can happen.
but I mean, that's the thing, is like, I don't have the resource, and I don't think anyone does, like, to go to the primary source. Like, where is that documented? Was it in someone's journal? But
right.
a lot of the stuff we do is it's like it's secondary source, right? And then some historian went into the archives and read all the journals and sifted through all the documents and then distilled it
Exactly.
into a book. But we can't do that. So I think it just happens, and historians do that. That's why they correct each other as new evidence is found. And
Well,
um,
and it's not dissimilar from clinical research that, we're
yeah.
looking at. We could, on every episode, literally write an entire book, and it would take you months to listen to it, right? But we have to cut it off somewhere. We have to go back
Mhm.
far enough, lay some foundation, but we're not getting every single thing in. And then obviously science changes and evolves
Yeah.
as well. So, here and there, Scott and I have sometimes, not just done like little corrections corners, but have done full episodes saying we need to revisit this topic because there's so
Mhm.
much more that we have discovered. And sometimes we discovered it pretty quickly, like a couple weeks after,
Yeah.
and had to kind of rework things to be able to get that out to the audience. But it's so interesting as we kind of look forward. I think about like the logistical things, like cleaning up the YouTube page and cleaning up, some of the audio, and I'm
Yeah.
like, and when I go back and listen, I'm gonna find stuff and I'm like, oh shit, that didn't hold up well. What do we want to do
Yeah.
about that? But
I mean, it's also
we'll
from
see.
my background in management consulting, where like you would have people who'd freak out if there's like one little mistake on a
Yeah.
slide. you
Yeah.
know, like like that OCD part of me is there, but there are some times where it's like, you just got to let it go out into the world. Like you really did do the due diligence. Maybe there's a misspelling here. Maybe the audio isn't perfect, but I think
Right.
if we get so caught, then nobody will ever publish anything. So just
For
getting to
sure.
the point where it's like, it's good enough. The intentions were good. And this is a process. And when it's wrong, we'll just fix it.
I was
Yeah.
using this video for a series of lectures I did for mental health intervention training for law enforcement. And did it every other week for 7.5 years. And it was a really well produced video by a police department in another state, like really, really great about bullying. And the grammar was so bad on the slides, like apostrophes, and I would just flinch every time I saw it, like I wanted to fix it
Yeah.
so badly. But
Yeah.
anyway, I want to there's a wonderful already as we're closing the door behind us and you are totally going to be in this space for a while. We have a Venn diagram of common show topics.
Yes.
You recently did an excellent two-parter on Winnie, Ruth, Judd. Our audience,
Huh.
our listeners are going to recall that is the woman in one of our vintage episodes from a few
Yep.
years ago that showed up at the LA Union Station with some trunks, with some leaking, stinky trunks that had various
Yeah.
body parts in them. Can you give us a little rundown on that story and how you went about your research?
Yeah. So it turned out that the bodies were two of Winnie Ruth Judd's closest friends, and she was ultimately convicted for murdering them. Probably it was jealousy. They had been living together for like a brief period of time, but Winnie Ruth Judd was having an affair with a man named Jack Halloran, who is the embodiment of everything I despise in a human, but I'll put that aside for a second. But it's possible that he was having affairs with at least one, and possibly both of those women. And there's so many versions of what happened. Winnie Ruth Judd was also very mentally disturbed on top of it. She was taking I can't remember the name, luminol, which like really messes with your head because she couldn't sleep at night. And there was probably a fight. We'll never know exactly what happened, but it ended up with them dead, and it ended up with them in trunks. And one of them was completely dismembered. So the big debate on that is, did someone help her do it? Because so all these women had various forms of tuberculosis. And so they're all very frail. Winnie is really frail. Like, could she have had the knowledge and the strength to do it? And you can listen to the episodes, but I worked out that actually I do think it's possible she did it all herself. I wouldn't convict her on it because I think there was a lot of reasonable doubt on that case. But that one, so how I went about with that. So this case, I love this case. I love a case that involves, and then they found a box and it had information that no one knew or no one saw before. And so the way I did this case is I looked for what are the most recent books, documentaries, podcasts, stories on this. I'd always try to go with what's most recent because it's usually the most up to date. And it was the case that a box was found. A reporter for the New Times, Robert Pella, did a series on it. And there was a letter where she confessed to the crime and that she did it all herself. So he had the advantage of what other people who wrote before him didn't have. They never saw this letter. Whether or not it's truthful is a separate thing, but but I wouldn't just go on that. There was also another book written by a former journalist, Jonna Bommersbach, who's pretty well known in Phoenix. That book has to be taken with a grain of salt because she definitely had a bias and a sympathy for Ruth, but she was also incredibly well documented. You could trace where she had. I mean, I didn't to the primaries, but there was a lot of really great information in there, but some of the conclusions or the inferences she drew, I was like, yeah, I don't really buy that. So I just try to stick to sources that are, they look like they're really well documented, and then try to get the most recent things to see, have people discovered more things that have helped our understanding of reconstructing that event.
Did you, because we barely mentioned it at the end of ours, but did you end up reading the book that was by one of the victims' ancestors?
You know what? Thank you so much I should have put that at the top. I did, because you know what? One of the first things I did was listen to your podcast, and you had mentioned that book. And so Sunny Whirl, that was her great,
Mhm.
one of the victims, Sammy Samuelson, her great niece, did this amazing thing where she retraced her aunt's steps and she visited the places she went. She has like a lot of files on communication. Sunny actually died too prematurely. She had cancer. But
Oh,
this book got published. What probably wasn't like as finalized and as edited as it could be, but the point is that it was the voice of not a victim, but someone related to the victim. And to me, that was like just evidence of like, I need to make sure if there's victim voices out there, I need to make sure there's a source out
sure.
there on it. So yeah, no,
Yeah.
thank you for bringing that one up.
Yeah, that was a neat kind of segue episode for you guys because it took place in Phoenix, but she ended up in Los Angeles, right?
Yes.
And I messed it up in our notes, Scott. It was actually Central Station. Union Station, I don't think was built yet at that time. But yeah, I kind of connected your two seasons a little bit, and
Yeah.
hence the reason we covered it because the investigation initially took place here, even though she was put on trial back in Arizona. So
Right.
very cool
Yeah.
story.
That one
And
might be my Roman Empire.
as Akiko says in our comment section, it's super hard to dismember bodies. You're scaring me a little bit,
How do you
Akiko, but
know
yes, that actually
Akiko?
is true.
Well, actually, butchers do it all the time, but okay, you can listen and tell me.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's a skill. I mean, but it does require skill if you're unless you're
Well,
going to be
Winnie,
a frail little tuberculosis ridden
you can't get me
individual.
on this case because we will fill up the rest of the time. But
I know.
Winnie Ruth Judd might have had the medical knowledge. She worked at medical clinics her whole
Mhm.
life, and like April
Right.
pointed out, a lot of times people who were not necessarily qualified would go into procedures and see or be part of or help when today we wouldn't do that. So she could have. The
And
other
her husband
theory,
was a doctor.
her husband was a doctor. That's where the
Yeah.
surgeon bag probably came from. I talked
Oh.
to, so we have a tour guide. He's actually got like designated status as a local historian now, Jared Riddle. He takes you on a tour. I think he's the only tour that goes to that Winnie Ruth Judd house. So I visited it with him. But like we had this conversation recently. It was supposed to be on another case entirely, but I was like, I got to know now after having done all the digging. Do you think that she did it herself? And he's like, I don't know. Like he actually thinks Jack Halloran, the guy I mentioned,
Mhm.
probably the one she was having an affair with, helped her. And then stuff he said kind of convinced me. And he's so fun. He's so funny. I wish I was more like this, where he was like, yeah, we'll just never know. And with the other case I had asked him about, he's like, we'll just never know. Not that he's not deeply researched. He knows a lot, but
But that's a really good point.
he knows
Yeah.
when to put it to bed. And I don't. I'm like, I need
Right.
to know.
I have to know.
I have to know. I have to put on the gloves and go into the files, and maybe I'll write a book about it one day. I don't know.
Okay,
Do
so you
it,
went
please.
to the
Yeah.
Winnie Ruth Judd little bungalow. We have to hear about how it was staying at the Lizzie Borden house though.
Oh, the Lizzie Borden house. I'd had a long flight, and so I was just so tired and hangry. I talk about this in the episode that when I walked in, I was like, if Andrew Borden, one of the people
The ghost of Andrew Borden.
and if he's here to antagonize me, I don't have time for you right now. I need a dinner
And a bed.
So there was it. I didn't notice the heaviness, per se. There is something about it because all the history. But one thing I will say, we did a ghost hunt that night in the house, and I'm so skeptical of all of this equipment that they use. I'm like, is it scientifically tested? If you can really test it. But I did have an experience where I sat down on a couch. There was like a pillow behind me, and I felt it was like almost like a thumb kind of like tracing at the base of my spine. And like I
Oh.
moved around, like trying to recreate it. Like maybe I just pushed in the pillow and it like puffed back out. But I
No,
don't,
thank you.
I don't think that, I don't think that was. So I don't know what that was.
Hmm.
But if I were to say I had an experience, I was like, that something's there. Like, is there a remote something in this pillow? There isn't. It
Yeah.
was like it was a flat pillow. So that was weird. For
Ooh.
sure.
Anything like get creepy when you're like sleeping there? Because I'll visit creepy places, but I don't want to spend the night at creepy places.
No, so April and I stayed in the Andrew and Abby Borden suite, and so the house design is really weird, which we go
Hmm.
into in the episode. It's part of like why could she have done it, and but there's two. It's like two bedrooms that open up to each other, and April was like, "Can you keep that bedroom door open?" And I just slept like a baby in the back room. I was like, "I'm fine. They've already
course.
messed with me tonight.
Yeah, yeah. So you were back there for the True Crime Podcast Festival. How was the festival? We missed it this year, and it's one of our first ones that we ever did.
Yeah. It was good. I think it's so interesting to meet all the different podcasts that are out there. And it really kind of inspired me when I was thinking about it after I got home, is like, I'm so interested in the stuff that all these other podcasters are doing. If we just keep featuring, people like that, people who are like
Mhm.
digging into the stories on ours, it becomes like another platform. But one that was really interesting, Shiloh, I'd send it to you. The city of Elgin, Illinois, the police chief has like a stack of cold cases that are decades old, and now there's more that they can share and talk about that they probably couldn't have in the past. So they started a podcast. So
That's awesome.
some of the cold case detectives who do the podcast came,
What a great
and
idea.
I know, it's amazing. I'm like, every county, every city, like, how do we share this with everybody in the world? Because
Yeah.
this is so innovative. And the first season, they actually solved their case. So
Whoa.
yeah. And the idea of it was, we want to put these out there into the public to generate leads because they're just so old. Um, but I thought
Amazing.
that was so interesting and innovative. There's another one, and the names of the hosts are going to escape me. In the Pines, where
Oh
Israel
yeah.
Israel Keys, the serial killer, he
Oof, yeah.
left. He buried a bunch of stuff along in the Pacific Northwest, and
The
they're
kill
literally,
kits.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I don't know a terrible amount about him. Serial killers, I don't like so much.
Well, we gotta let me tell you, our dear friend Josh Hallmark, his show on Israel Keys, he's another one that just is so amazing about the
Mhm.
level of research that he goes into.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, that is not an easy one to listen to, because there were some of the recordings. I mean, I've worked in prisons, I've worked in jails, and there were a couple of times I was like, "Yep, nope, turning this off. I
Yeah,
can't have that in my head right now."
yeah.
That Israel Keys was, whether he was lying about 50% of his stuff or not, he was an evil person. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's like, our monster's real. Yes, that's
Yeah.
definitely it. But like, what they're doing with that is, in the Pines podcast, they're trying to find these boxes to try to help solve, which is just so interesting.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
just love hearing about all of this other work that's being done in the true crime space. So
Definitely. It is, in that sense, definitely more diverse than just people behind microphones telling stories.
yes. Yeah.
To be in at Josh's podcast festival last year in the Berkshires, the in the Pines guys, I call them the In the Pines guys, are on his network and are working
Mhm.
closely with him, and did a panel and talked about a lot of the work that they're doing. But I mean, they're like literally taking these trekking trips to go find
Yeah.
things. They're doing the work, and then you think of, like you
Mhm.
mentioned, this cold case homicide unit being at a podcast festival, right? Like,
Yeah.
so cool. Every time Scott and I kind of gravitate towards, the sort of the law enforcement tables too, when we go around, and it's all different, right? It's either talking about like law enforcement mental health, or actually solving cases, or talking about, stories and cases that they've lived from their perspectives. It's, that's just one little subsection of true crime, which
Right.
is just really neat to see that evolution and how creative people are being. So,
Definitely.
so at the end of the show, we do some rapid fire questions, just fun things.
Okay.
I know I was going to ask you what's next for the show. Before we get to that, I know you said you're starting to think about have guests on, and more researchers and experts and things like that. Anything else that we can kind of look forward to, formatting wise, or just, I mean, do you guys know what city you're doing next? Would you even say?
Oh, we'll be on Phoenix for a while.
Okay. Okay.
So, but honestly, probably New Orleans,
Ooh,
because I feel like that
amazing.
could just write itself, honestly.
Yeah. Seriously.
Uh, yeah. So, but I also need to get out there. I love when I can visit these sites. I will visit
Of
them.
course.
But the other thing I'll say too with Arizona, I have yet to sprinkle these in, but there's all these like interesting small little towns, like mining towns.
Mm,
Jerome if you've heard of a mining town in Arizona, you've probably heard of Jerome and the Haunted
yeah.
Hotel. So we'll do like an off-road on that, just that history and that story.
Very
So
cool.
there'll
Ooh,
be,
I'll meet you there. Let's do
exciting.
let's do an
Oh yeah.
overnight. I'll drive
Yeah.
Shiloh. She'll come.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm down for the road trip. Of
Let's do
course.
it.
Definitely.
Okay,
Yeah.
so rapid
Everybody raves
fire.
about those tours.
Yes, and I know a lot of people that go there year after year and
Yeah.
just say it's like super great, like even just family trips. Okay, rapid fire questions. If you could live inside any TV show or movie series or universe, what would you choose?
Is it like the thing that comes to mind immediately is Stranger Things, just because I love the show, but also that's a really
That
terrifying
sounds
universe.
terrifying.
Wow, you are a brave person.
No, thank you.
I just love the cast so much. I love that show.
Yeah.
Those
Maybe
those
not the
kids are
Demogorgons.
charming.
Yeah.
I don't know, K-pop Demon Hunters. I'm also obsessed with that movie, but
Sounds like more of the same. Demon
That's
hunting,
awesome.
maybe. Okay.
yeah.
So, outside of your current job and your current career, and outside of podcasting, what is the weirdest job you've ever had?
Oh, I wouldn't call it weird, but maybe surprising. When I was in undergrad, I was a research assistant for it was called the Atom Project. It was the point of the project was to interview recently incarcerated people about their drug use, and it was super super detailed, like everything you
Wow.
can think of. Like the worst cases were the people who were doing heroin because they were on serious withdrawals. So I would
Yeah.
do that as a research project. I would interview them, and then if they participated, they got a Snickers bar.
Oh my goodness. That's what an amazing experience.
And
Yeah,
also,
it was
if you're when you're coming off heroin, you just desperately want sugar. So
oh gosh, those are the worst cases.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure. What's a book that you've reread over again or that you always tend to recommend to people?
All the Light We Cannot See.
Oh,
What is that about in a
Uh,
gist?
it's about World War II, but it's through the eyes of like a young girl who's like she's had her whole world basically displaced, and a young boy who is part of working on the technology. And that sounds really not interesting, but it's kind of about everything that's ugly but also beautiful in the world is all I will
Mm,
say. You just have to read it.
sounds amazing.
beautiful. So if you could instantly master one skill outside of your field, what would it be?
Guitar. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Singing.
Like
Musical
playing an
instrument.
instrument? Yeah.
That part of my brain doesn't work.
Same for sure. Okay, last question. Super fun. What's your most used emoji?
Oh, maybe
And if you
the
want to
like
act it out for us, no, I'm just kidding.
palm on forehead emoji lately.
Right? There's so many now, and then I'm still like, but they don't have the emotion that I'm feeling at this moment.
I know you can make your own apparently, but
There you go.
I
There you
know.
go.
The one that I've been using with everything that's going on in the world right now, the one that I'm using the most is shrug. Like,
Yeah.
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
There you
yeah,
go.
yeah.
Well, Leah, thank you so much for your time and for agreeing to do this. This was
Thank
great.
you.
I feel like people are going to be in good hands with you and your show. And if they've liked any of the stuff of ours that has kind of touched on that, I think they're going to find your show fantastic and just really interesting. And I hope they have all the faith in you that we do.
Thank
That,
you. And I will be trying to twist your arm to get you on the show too. So
Oh, you won't have to twist
okay,
very
we're
hard.
available.
You know, we won't be able to stay away. We spend a lot of money on these microphones. We got to still use them every once in a while.
I
We would be
Exactly.
honored to. Thank you.
I could literally bring you on to all of them, but I won't do that to you. You're charging me.
No, that would be so fun, especially to like step out to other cities and talk about other stories. And
Yeah, totally. You
yeah,
always need a
yeah.
forensic psychologist.
Always, always. Everybody does. No. All right. Well, thank you so much. Thanks to everyone that came by and popped on and
And
watched
thank you also for the
tonight.
kind words, everybody. There's some really nice stuff in the comment section.
I
So thank you.
know. I know. This has been a crazy journey doing these live shows. I mean, they've all been fun, whether we're interviewing awesome people like Leah or just doing like a true crime in the news sort of thing. We've been through some stuff together. I mean, our very first like live behind the couch, I think was first or second was when the civil unrest was happening in 2020. It was
Yeah.
a very strange time. So thank you all so much. This will be available forever on YouTube for everybody to watch later on. So please go subscribe to Dark City. I am going to pop Leah's website in the chat one more time so you guys can get that on your radar. But it's a fantastic listen. They're only in their second season. So you have just enough to catch up on, but not feel like you're drowning, like as if you were going to start LA Not So Confidential right now.
Start with the most recent episodes. We get better every time.
Oh, we all say that. We all say that for sure. All right, everyone. Good night. And we'll see you next time on LA
Not so.
Confidential. Bye,
Bye,
guys.
folks. Bye.
Bye.